John, welcome to Bloomberg. Good to have you here. You were the head.
Thank you, David.
You're the head of a successful and important basic cable network. I mean, you account for a fair amount of the revenue, frankly, and operating income for the 21st Century Fox. At the same time, it is a basic cable network, and those are under siege. How is your business doing? Is it growing?
Yes, it's doing really well, and it is growing. We had our best year ever by a decent margin last year, and we're confident. We're only one quarter into the operating year, but we're confident we will beat that high water mark again this year. So on the one hand, we're doing really well. On the other hand, I don't think anybody who operates a business like mine can or really should ignore the transformation that's going on in this ecosystem. So at the same time, I think we're having a lot of success operating the business we have today. We're spending a lot of time thinking about planning for and making changes for what we think the business will look like tomorrow.
Well, and part of that transformation you talk about is the prominence, growing prominence of platforms, as we would say. And I don't want to pick on Netflix, yes. It's also Amazon and other places, but you've spoken out specifically about Netflix, and it's a big kid on the block as a practical matter. Explain to me your relationship, FX's relationship with Netflix at this point.
Well, I mean, Hollywood in general, and that would include FX, sold a fair amount of its content and still sells a fair amount of its content to platforms. The primary subscription video on demand platforms today are Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu, although there are many more emerging, and there are new platforms entering the space like Apple and Google. And Facebook has said they're going to begin doing original programming. You know, my point of view about it is that I think platforms in general, and I'm not even just talking about television, tend to be antagonistic to brands, right? They tend to use other forms of navigation for consumers, you know, consumer recommendations, user ratings, algorithms to sort of disintermediate brands. And I think in some category areas, retail category areas, that works efficiently for consumers. I don't believe it does or ever will work sufficiently for consumers in something like television, just as it doesn't work in many forms of luxury goods where the upper bound of excellence is essentially infinite. And so I think my point of view about how to run a brand is you have to actually aggregate that brand. You have to put it together. So we've put together, you know, all the episodes of television FX has produced over a pretty hallowed 15-year period, as well as the fact that we have new shows coming out. And I've said publicly, I don't think we should be selling any of our content exclusively to any platforms anymore. We might choose to share it with a platform non-exclusively, where we have it in our brand and they have it on their platform. But we in Hollywood had been selling exclusively, and I don't think we should be doing that anymore.
At the same time, Netflix at this point and Amazon has a very, very large megaphone. They reach a lot of people very quickly, and they are paying a lot of money for that content. How does it affect your bottom line to say we won't take Netflix's business, at least on an exclusive basis, because that's the way you really make your big money?
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, actually, content revenue as a percentage of total revenue of FX networks is in the 10-12% range. So it's not nothing, but it's not the most significant revenue line item. Subscription revenue and ad revenue are both significantly higher. And again, I think if we may choose to take some revenue non-exclusively, but essentially what we all have to do is we have to build our own brand. So we launched something called FX Plus with Comcast a little more than a month ago, and now Cox is joining, and we're talking to other operators. And that will be a subscription service for people who really want the whole brand and they want it commercial free. Currently exists only within the multi-video program distribution marketplace, meaning it's only available at the moment to basic cable subscribers. But I think we can layer on our own subscription business, and I don't think they have to grow to nearly the scale that Netflix or Amazon or Hulu have, because again, we're not trying to be platforms, we're trying to be brands, and I think essentially brands are going to evolve. But I think the best brands, the really good brands, I think still have a very bright future. I would absolutely bet on HBO to be a thriving, successful brand, 20 years from now in the television ecosystem.
So as you look at these platforms, John, is it a matter of reaching the audience, that is to say they may siphon off audience from you, or is it a matter on the cost side? We look at the incredible production budgets we're seeing from Netflix and from Amazon, people like that. That must be giving you fits on the cost side.
Well, the cost of making quality television programming is going up, but I think that's a good thing for consumers. I think an arms race, so to speak, in programming is part of what's fueling this platinum age of television, golden age of television and quality. On the other hand, I think that too much content creates a paradox of choice, creates a difficult system within which to navigate. I'm a subscriber to these platforms. I'm an Amazon Prime subscriber, a Netflix subscriber, a Hulu subscriber, but honestly, I can't always navigate through the sheer volume of those platforms. I need brands. I want HBO, I want AMC, I want Showtime, I want various really good brands to help me navigate towards excellence. So I think that platforms and brands have to learn to coexist. I don't know that I think Silicon Valley would agree with that assessment, but that's my assessment. And ultimately, I'm very bullish, really truly bullish about this transitional period. I think, we wouldn't have even been able to offer our brand in the model that was pioneered by HBO, meaning a box set of every series made under the brand's aegis since time immemorial. We wouldn't be able to do it without a streaming service. I think that moving from both being a linear channel and a streaming service, meaning a deep library service, will actually allow a fuller, better expression of our brand. But still, that'll be 1,500 episodes, 2,000 episodes. I think HBO has about 2,500. It's not 50,000 episodes. I think a brand provides a different utility, and it can have a house brand with some good programming in it, but I think a platform rather provides a different utility than a brand, and I think both are going to coexist in the future.
But as you suggest, the FX brand still exists even within a Netflix. You can go and find it with FX. Why is it different from Comcast? Comcast is a brand too. So why doesn't that play the same role as the platforms such as Netflix or Amazon?
Well, first of all, a very, very imperfect version of the FX brands exists in Netflix. They have a few FX shows. They have American Horror Story, they have American Crime Story, but they have a very, very small percentage of the FX output. That output right now is spread mostly non-exclusively, although Netflix has exclusive deal with American Crime Story prior seasons. We have the current seasons, but that's a spread across the platforms. It only exists all in one place in one brand, which is the FX brand. And I would say Comcast is a platform. You're talking about hundreds of channels, potentially hundreds of thousands of episodes of television. It's a great product and utility at a great price, just as I think Netflix is. But I think it would be functionally impossible to navigate through the sheer volume of content made available on Comcast's platform or Netflix's platform without any form of brand. I think that ultimately you're going to need, just as when you go into a supermarket or a Walmart, you need brands to help you navigate, because if everything were labeled with generic ingredients, it would be almost impossible to navigate your way through a supermarket. I think there are certain products where good enough is good enough. I don't happen to think television. I think television is one of the products where good enough is not good enough. You want the very best. And I think for those brands that are able to consistently operate in the level of the very best and able to aggregate a legacy of that very best, the future is very bright. I think if you're in the middle of the pack and your content is of kind of middling quality, I think you may be in for some really rough sledding.
So John, finally, how do you build a brand in this new digital world? It's always been a challenge, but in a day when you had 3 broadcast networks, you could put the program on at 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock and build a brand doing it that way. It's much more complicated now with so much material out there. How do you build a brand? What are the mechanisms you rely upon?
I really rely on, I guess I'd say, a similar mechanism to what an editor of a magazine or a newspaper or perhaps a channel relies on, which is you have to be a curator. You have to stand for something in terms of the editorial quality of what you do. I think we have a unique ability as an organization to seek relationships with business and creative relationships and bring out the very best in creative people. We've shown a track record over 15 years of making, numerous comedies, dramas, limited series that are not just good but great, that are acclaimed as among the best television being made. So we have a unique skill set in terms of being able to find, and most of that, by the way, is with first-time producers or people that you wouldn't think of as brand names who are established people in television. We're not in the business of going out with a massive payroll and buying the A-plus talent. We're in the business of developing that talent and developing their work from the ground up. And when we can take everything we've done for 15 years, back to the Shield, Nip Tuck, Rescue Me, Damages, Louis, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and put that in a context with all the great work we're doing today, American Crime Story, American Horror Story, Fargo, Legion, Atlanta, Baskets, Better Things, and on and on and on. I think that's a very powerful environment within which there's an extraordinary amount of not television of average quality, but television of exceptional quality that's been curated and nurtured over a period of time. I would say someone who's, the editor of one of the best magazines in America is doing something similar. And I can only tell you as a consumer of long-form journalism, I still find those editors and those magazines and those sites to be incredibly valuable to giving me access to really great writing that provides context within the world we live in. And I still rely on HBO and Showtime and many other brands, AMC, to sort of navigate me towards the best in television. I think Netflix can be one of those brands, but I don't think it can be the whole enchilada. I don't believe that in television, Silicon Valley is going to manage to supplant every existing legacy brand, whether they're broadcast networks, cable networks, or premium networks that exist. I don't think they can get all the talent. I don't think they have the breadth of skill set to essentially disintermediate the whole brand ecosystem that exists today.